The auxiliary belt has snapped on the Range Rover, so I'm heading to pick one up. Whether or not it's just happened because it was old and decrepit like me. There we go. Auxiliary belt, ribbed, nice thing, including air conditioning. Bad Range Rover, but we do know what's wrong with this now. We've had a little look, and I don't know if you can see down there, but that belt is completely and utterly shredded. So we need to get this fan cowling off and have a look and see if anything's caused that problem or if it's just the old age of the belt. So I started by removing the fan cowling, got that off and had a look down to where all of the pulleys are for the auxiliary belt, and it was pretty clear straight away that the idler pulley had disintegrated. So I quickly ordered one of those from the internet, pulled the auxiliary belt out, and as you can see it's totally destroyed, but fortunately the car had not overheated. Nick had been sensible enough to stop this and prevented any additional problems that would have been a nightmare. So that's the viscous fan out, and the new idler pulley is on, which is good. All of these seem to actually be reasonably okay. There's a little bit of play in there. Probably should have replaced all of these at the same time. However, probably going to do some more work on this at some stage. So let's crack on, get this belt back on, get this fan in, and then we can repair this broken hose here, which is the radiator bleed hose. Let's do this. Putting the new auxiliary belt on is a piece of cake. It's really easy. Just pull the tensioner over, get that in, and you can see it around the new idler pulley. So that's all done and dusted. This is the hose from the radiator bleed valve, and this is the old piece. This bit here is quite fragile, so we need to be careful getting the hose back over that so we don't cause any damage or issues. And this routes around in front of the battery actually with this replacement part. It goes up to the expansion tank at the back. We're in the P38 and we have working power steering. The belt is staying on, which is a good sign, joking aside. And now we're going to watch this temperature gauge. But of course that doesn't mean to say that the Range Rover is completely fixed, because it's not. As you can see, we've got a bunch of lights on. So I've got to figure out what else is wrong with this car, and I've just had a traction failure come up on the main display. So let's try and scan this car, and I'm not sure whether or not my scanner will do this car. I have an Autel, so let's give it a go. So we need to scan the car first of all, and let's go to European, and let's find Range Rover. There we go. Establishing vehicle communications. Failed to read the VIN from the instrument cluster. Okay. It is a Range Rover. It is a 1999, probably the later one I believe on this. So let's read the ABS, see if it'll communicate with the ABS. Doesn't want to communicate. Just because it can't communicate with one part of the car doesn't mean to say it won't communicate with a different module on the car, so I'm giving one of the other ones a go. This can take a little bit of time, particularly with older cars and with older diagnostic tools for those cars, so be patient and give it a chance to do its job. And success, we can read some codes, so let's have a look, and there we go. Okay, let's have a look at that. That is 0x32. OX32. So that is an SRS light and airbag fault. Okay, let's see if it'll allow me to clear that code. Ignition on and engine stopped. Indeed it is. DTCs and freeze data. Do you wish to continue? Yes. It's always funny watching myself do diagnostics, just look at the pure concentration on my face. Okay, so that appears to have cleared that code. That's a good start. Okay, so what else have we got going on here? Let's go back. We'll communicate with the cruise control. If we are having an issue, we can actually have a little look. Read codes, let's see what we get now. Ooh, okay, so we've got a number of issues down here. Rough road signal implausible, catalyst damaging misfire, multiple cylinders. Okay, that's not great. We've got a number of misfire issues there, but we've got an anti-theft alarm serial link fault. This has had a flat battery at some stage, so it is also quite possible that some of these are old battery faults that have caused this. A low battery on this can cause a whole host of issues, I would imagine. Alright, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually clear all of those codes and see whether or not we get any success with this. So what I'm going to do now is start this engine and actually see whether or not we've reset. Oh, there we go. And see whether or not any of these warning lights have gone off. See what we've managed to clear. See what we've managed to not clear. It looks like we've still got actually most of these lights on. Okay, well, this is a problem, but I am going to drive this car now and see what it's like and do a quick road test and see what else we've got to work with. What I do know is that back in the day, these cars had their own software called Nanocom, I think, which effectively allows you to do a lot more. It's a Land Rover product that will do all of the kind of reading and overwriting and coding with these cars. So I am going to have to, probably by the looks of it, get my hands on a Nanocom to try and identify what some of these issues are, because I'm not getting the fault codes that I really need to fix this. But let's drive it, let's see what else is there. I can build a list and then we can figure out how I'm going to attack the rest of it. Let's road test. Driving in my V8, I like. This is very much full Eastern European specification car of the bad man. So there is one problem that I've just noticed there straight away, which is this seat is slightly loose, so that is something we need to deal with. So right, we've still got the ABS light on and we've got the traction control light on. I'm guessing that they are speed sensor orientated issues, but again, without being able to read that, I can't actually confirm that that is the case. I'm going to try and figure out everything that's wrong with this car. Let's start with number one. This steering wheel isn't straight, not remotely. In fact, wow, it's about 45 degrees off. So that's one immediately noticeable issue. I'm driving down this road because this is a bumpy road, it's a country road. This is the natural habitat of this car, and there straight away I can hear a knock, and that knock sounds like, sounds like it's coming from the front driver's side of the car. What is good is that the temperature is holding still, so it looks like we've got no problems from the auxiliary belt and the pulleys that we've replaced on this, and obviously ensure that we've done all the other checks, check the coolants, etc., make sure that everything is a-okay, and that is so far fine. But yeah, there's a really definite knock from that front suspension. That's probably about the worst thing so far. Car grips pretty well, that's a good thing. I can't test the sunroof because I've got a GoPro attached to it. I just nearly tested the sunroof with the GoPro stuck to the sunroof. That would have caused me all kinds of problems. Fortunately, I am so spatially aware that that did not happen. Right, let's turn this big old barge around and let's head back down that road. It's absolutely red hot in here today. Right, let's try sport mode on the gearbox, make sure that works. See if it'll hold the revs. 50. Holding its revs. Sport mode works quite well. That's good. Oh, it's a big old barge, this. Forget that this is not, it's not a sports car, this. It doesn't handle quite the same way. But it's good. It's very good. If you're used to driving a modern four-wheel drive car, these don't drive anything at all like one. These are old four-wheel drives and luxurious four-wheel drives, and it drives kind of like an old car. At the same time, do you know something? This is genuinely a really luxurious place to be. These seats are incredibly comfortable and it's a beautiful view. The visibility in this is absolutely phenomenal. It's like being in a giant fishbowl, and consequently today when it's sunny and I'm in a hoodie, it's absolutely and utterly red hot, but it's beautiful. So brakes, can you hear that? The suspension knock, and the wheel wobble and the rattle, the steering wheel not being on straight. I think I've just said brake pads. Obviously these warning lights that I cannot delete because my scanner won't actually read them properly. So there's going to be quite a few things to fix, but to be fair, so far none of it is absolutely major. That looked like Ben Stokes driving a Lamborghini Urus, because it was. And we've got the brake noise. Brake pads, brake pads, brake pads. By the power of auto, I shall scan you and use my superpowers to identify the problems that I have. Yeah, you may argue that I've got quite a few problems. Right, so I'm now back at the unit and I'm going to do a quick visual on this car and see what other problems we have got going on. I am going to drive this over the pit first of all and just take a look underneath, because I know there's a bit of an oil leak. I've driven the P38 over the pit, so that enables me to get underneath and take a better look at what's happening. There is basically a lot of oil on the front diff, and if you look backwards down the car, down the transfer case and working down the prop, there's oil getting sprayed back and possibly leaking as well. So as you can see, we've got quite a bit of fluid floating around under the car, so we need to get that all cleaned off to be able to identify what's going on. But my biggest problem really is not being able to scan the car properly to identify some of these other issues. So I need to get my hands on a nanocom. So to do that, I'm going to post into some of the forums and see whether or not anybody local has got one that I can use. Now let's take a look at the brakes and the electrics. The rear pads and discs are absolutely trashed, and unbelievably this car just passed an MOT before it arrived with me. Fortunately the fronts are not as bad. This button here controls the air suspension on this Range Rover, which allows you to raise and lower the vehicle. If I pop this up, this is for off-roading, and of course I can lower it down, and you will see that the car basically just starts to drop its level a little bit, like that. And effectively everything's working really well on this air suspension system, which is a bit of a surprise. This car has an aftermarket stereo fitted, which sounds pretty decent. However, a couple of the speakers are slightly blown, so we'll have to replace those as well. The window lock and the rest of the electrics seem to work okay. The sunroof is fully operational. It goes up and down, tilt and slides, which is very nice in this summery weather that we don't usually get. The electric windows all seem to work, which is also a big bonus because I like to get a bit of fresh air into the car. Look at that, up and down windows, perfect for fresh air. Or more accurately, drive through. The sport mode works as we already know, the handbrake is fine, and the gearbox itself is working absolutely brilliantly indeed. This heater system is perfectly functioning. The only thing that doesn't really work that well on it is of course the air conditioning, which doesn't entirely blow cold, so that may just need some gas. And twiddling your knob faster won't make it work any better either. The heated seats aren't really giving you any heat, so that's something to take a look at, but the elements do fail on these P38s, and that's a pretty common problem, and that may well be the case with this particular car. Now, let's just talk about where we are with this P38. Do you know something? I think we've got pretty lightly with this P38. These cars are not renowned for being the most reliable thing. However, yes, we've got a list of problems, but it's not that bad. Nothing's really major. We've got the oil leak or fluid leak. We've got the knocking from the suspension and the rattle. We've got a bit of a wobble on occasion through the steering wheel and the fact that the steering wheel isn't on straight. We've also got actually pretty much working electrics, which is amazing. Most importantly, we've got a working air ride suspension system, and all of the modes are working pretty well in that, and the compressor is quite healthy because it's going up and down quite quickly. Handbrake works, gearbox is really good, and everything's working really fine on that. The engine pulls quite well. We've got the problems that we can't identify because my scanner will not read it. So nanocom, we need to get our hands on that. And we've got the brakes, etc., discs and pads, which are just general service items. So overall, this is proving to be an okay car in some ways. Not as described, but do you know something? All of it is fixable, and all of it is fixable without really a massive amount of cost. I think. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please do so. Click the subscribe button and make sure to hit the bell icon to get updates on all of my latest videos. It would also help massively if you click the like button on this video. That really, really helps me in terms of YouTube wanting to push these videos a little bit more. So if you haven't done that, just click that little button, give it the thumbs up and say, you know, I like this.